Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 468 for the 8th of October 2017. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. I'd better make this quick. The show is pretty jammed-packed, full to the brim, full to the boot, overflowing. Where's my thesaurus? It's a big show. Starting the show is an interview with a very dear old friend of mine. Not to say that she's old, that we've known each other for 10 years, so she's an old friend, if you understand my meaning. Dr Pamela Gay. Dr Pamela Gay, the astronomer, whose speciality is variable stars. Variable stars. Today, Pamela's going to tell us about a way you can help science by identifying pictures taken from space of Earth. Always a pleasure to chat to Dr. Pamela Gay, and I'm sure you'll find this interesting and a way for you to help science. Then it's a report of the recent SHONKY Awards, the awards from Choice magazine, the consumer magazine here in Australia. And a few days ago I attended their annual SHONKY Awards. A shonk is something that doesn't really work as it's claimed to do, or it's a bit dodgy or doesn't function, or you get the idea. The SHONKY Awards, my report and some interviews coming up a little bit later. Then a special Maynard spooky action. Maynard and I attended a performance of Billie and the Dinosaurs, written by Tim Ferguson from the Doug Anthony All-Stars and the Bunga Bunga podcast, together with Geoff and David Willis. Now, we went along to the Australian Museum, where we perform the Mystery Investigators every year, to see a performance of Billie and the Dinosaurs, which is really a very interactive show for little children. And the reason we're bringing this to you today is part of the Skeptic Zone's broader mandate of promoting good science. And Tim Ferguson certainly made sure that the science in this wonderful kids' story is as accurate as it can be when it involves Australian dinosaurs. A bit of music, a bit of fun, coming up with Billie and the Dinosaurs. Then another report from Eran Segev from the recent European Skeptics Congress. Today, Eran talks to the Italian skeptic Massimo Polidoro, and with him, James the Amazing Randi. Amazing is right. At 89, he's still globetrotting and speaking at various conventions. In fact, I look forward very much to seeing James Randi, only in a few weeks in Las Vegas. Then to round off the show, another report from our dear friend Susan Gerbeck from the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia as she makes her way round Europe. I'm feeling a bit left out here. And today, Susan talks to Holm Gero Hümmler, who is a nuclear physicist and a skeptic. Now, just before we get stuck into this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone, a couple of quick notes, and there'll be some more messages at the end of the show that you already know at the Australian Skeptics, Tim Mendham and myself. We have a late-night radio segment here in Australia on Radio 2GB, networked through the Macquarie Network, and that's with Mike Williams, and that's a lot of fun. We've been doing that since February. And just in the last couple of weeks, we've picked up another radio segment. This one is on the Talking Lifestyle Network, and that used to be known as 2UE for those Sydney listeners. And I've already done a couple of those. The first official one was broadcast last week. I'll put a link in the show notes. And the topic was astrology. So more skeptics on the radio. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all in late November, the Australian Skeptics National Convention, in conjunction with Think Inc. The Skeptic Zone will be doing a live broadcast there, or a live recording, I should say. And don't forget the dinner, the annual Australian Skeptics Dinner. And you can find details about that dinner at skeptics.com.au. Tickets are filling up fast. It's going to be a fabulous night of magic and comedy and spoon bending, and Maynard running around like a lunatic, and the awarding of the Skeptics Awards, including the annual Bent Spoon Award. I hope to see many Skeptic Zone fans at our annual dinner. When I say our annual dinner, it's because I'm also a member of the Australian Skeptics, although the Skeptic Zone is an independent production, as you probably know. But now it's time for me to... Oh, I almost forgot. Oh, I can't believe... Very quickly. A couple of days ago, I lined up a little lunch date with Karl Kruszelnicki so he and I could catch up. And on the same day, we had organised for our dear friend Lara Benham, who's on the Australian Skeptics Committee, to spend the day with Karl. Lara's a science teacher, so I thought that was quite appropriate. So when it came time for me to turn up for lunch to catch up with Karl and see Lara, out of the elevator walked Bill Nye. And after I picked myself off the floor, we had a nice lunch all together. Wow, that was something very special. I wasn't expecting that. Bill Nye is here to do some talks around Australia. And of course, he would catch up with Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki, who is the Australian Bill Nye, and Bill Nye is the American Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki. What a day. That was a very memorable lunch. So, to honour that, I'm going to run outside, jump into my car or get onto the tram or something and head for a Yum Cha restaurant because that's what we had. In fact, I might wait till after the show because that's a long way to go. While I'm contemplating all that, I hope you enjoy The Skeptic Zone. And joining me now on the line all the way from Edwardsville in Illinois, a state I've yet to visit, it's the one and only, one of the brightest stars in the heavens, surely, Dr. Pamela Gay.
Oh, thank you for having me on. You always give me such a warm introduction.
Well, I can't help but think of stars when I think of you with your work in astronomy and variable stars. Just quickly, Pamela, and it's such a fascinating topic, just for our people out there our audience who may not know, what exactly is a variable star?
It's a star that changes in brightness for any one of a myriad of different reasons. For instance, a supernova is a star that varies once very violently as it ends its life. But the ones I studied are called pulsating variable stars. And these are stars that over the course of anywhere from hours to weeks, gradually change in brightness and color, somewhat beating like a heart. It's one of these things that a lot of people don't realize that stars do. They change. And anyone who says that they want a love, that is constant as the stars, which is a Keats quote, they don't know what they're getting into because they're looking for a highly variable future.
I'm sure they are. But it's interesting. I guess it's something that we don't think about when we gaze up to the stars every now and then. We just see these little points of light. I mean, they twinkle to our eye because of what astronomers call seeing, which is the interference or the, I wouldn't want to say pollution necessarily, of our atmosphere playing tricks on our eyes.
It's true. Your average star, we see this moment-to-moment twinkling that's mostly caused by different temperature variations and humidity variations in the atmosphere. But planets don't twinkle. So when you say twinkle, twinkle, little star, it probably actually is a star and not Venus or Jupiter or Mars.
So just to interrupt you, does that mean that when the astronauts are on the shuttle or out in space or the Hubble telescope, it sees stars somewhat differently with more of a constant light?
Oh, yeah, they don't have twinkling. This is why we put Hubble where we did, was to get rid of all of that annoying atmospheric interference.
That's interesting. So you can't really sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on the space shuttle. Well, you could, I suppose.
Well, you could. You just would have nothing to wish upon. Unless you saw something exploding, which, again, problems.
Pamela, if I was in the space shuttle or the next generation, whatever that may be, and I'm whizzing around and I saw a star explode, I think I would be concerned.
I think that would be a valid concern, but for the most part, there's nothing close enough in danger of exploding that we actually have to worry. What's kind of cool to think about is there's a few stars up in the sky right now. There's Betelgeuse, which is just becoming visible this time of year to everyone in the globe. You can see it, I can see it in our two different hemispheres. And Betelgeuse, that shoulder of Orion, it could explode any moment. There's other stars, Eta Carina, which only you can see down in your southern hemisphere, and I can't. It's another one that's liable to explode at any moment. But these stars are so far away that the only real problem we're going to have is trying to get in the right place to take the best photo. What's awesome is both will be visible during the day when they finally do this, whether it be tomorrow or a million years from now.
That's interesting. And when you say any moment now, it's possible that as you and I are having this chat on what is it, a Wednesday for me, and I think a Tuesday for you, that both these stars have indeed already exploded. How long would it take for us to get that information?
Oh, I don't remember the exact distances of the two of them, but I believe it's order of hundreds of light years away, which means we're looking across, well, how long both of our nations have existed for the light to be able to travel to get to us, if not longer. So light takes time, and we're always seeing things in the past. And this is actually something you and I experience is we send our sound waves traveling at the speed of light as radio waves around the planet. There's a delay from when I say something to when you hear it, and from when you speak and I'm able to hear your words. And it's that constancy that, well, we can never see anything in the moment. We're only ever seeing things in the past.
That's true. I mean, you're hearing me a fraction of a second after I speak and vice versa. But when we say a fraction of a second, it really is such a fraction of a second that it doesn't delay our conversation. I seem to remember watching TV interviews when I was growing up, and they say, now we're hooking up on the satellite all the way to America, and there was a noticeable delay. It was interesting, but it's getting shorter and shorter. I guess that's just technology.
Well, it's not just technology, it's also how we route things. So it's where we put the technology. As you and I speak, we're actually using cables that go across the surface of the world. Once upon a time, the signals, and this is what we still suffer with satellite trucks, the signals are going from the surface of the planet up to some communication satellite that is far, far, far away, and we're getting half a second to a second of delay just in the travel time to get to these distant communication satellites. It's really much faster to wrap a wire around the world.
That's a strange thought, to think that what you're saying and what I'm saying now are crawling through cables, physically crawling through cables.
We're disturbing the fish.
We must be sorry to the fish. But let's not talk about fish. Let's keep our eyes gazed up towards the heavens. And I want to talk to you about a project I've just heard about, which sounds very exciting. And this is how every Skeptic Zone listener can come to your assistance here. And this is to do with photographs taken by astronauts. Please tell us more.
It's true. So at cosmoquest.org, we have a variety of science projects that anyone out there with a computer and an internet connection can get involved in. And we do require you to use a computer so that you have big pixels in front of your eyeballs and can get highly accurate results. And with some of our projects that I've talked about before, we're mapping out other worlds. Well, this time we're mapping out our own world, our own planet Earth. We've had astronauts from 18 different nations orbiting above us on the International Space Station, and from their vantage point 250 miles up, they have an amazing view of our planet. They've been able to image everything from the wild flowers in the California desert finally blooming this year with all of the rainfall California got in the spring, to seeing the varying ebb and flow of material flying out of the Mississippi River when we get our springtime floods, and seeing the changing desert in Saudi Arabia, that sometimes the high desert will get snow. And we have all these amazing things captured in photos. And the astronauts, who are amazing, brilliant, awesome human beings, do not label their photos.
I guess they've got other things on their mind.
It's true. So we have 1.5 million photos.
Oh boy.
We know where the space station was when the photos were taken, so we know what is straight down from the camera.
Yeah.
But the view is good from up there.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of planet they can see from up there. So this is where we need everyone out there helping us label these photos so that they can be used for science, so that they can be used for photojournalism and investigative reporting and school projects, looking at city sprawl and lights at night. And so many different things are possible with these photos if we can just get all of them labeled. And what's cool is I have learned that people who fly airplanes and do map things as a hobby are way better at this than I, an astrophysicist, will ever be.
Well, that doesn't surprise me necessarily. I guess they're sort of used to it in a way. But it sounds like something that everybody could get used to.
It's true. And I didn't think it would happen, but the more I do this, the better I get at it. And people who start out from that familiarity of flying planes, they'll get it much, much faster. But anyone out there, no matter what they do, as long as they're careful, it's just this crazy game of Where's Waldo, except, well, what I was playing earlier today was Where is this lake in Chile? Oh. And so far we've stumbled across images ranging from the Straits of Gibraltar to Argentinian glaciers to Nantes, France at night to farm fields in Virginia. The whole world is captured in these photos, and we just need everyone out there to help us find the place in the world these photos are depicting.
This sounds absolutely fascinating, and I promise you, as soon as we wrap this up, I'm going to go straight on to cosmoquest.org, and I will, of course, pay the particular interest and attention to the photographs from Australia, which must be stunning.
They are, but we don't know which ones are Australian until you identify them for us.
Ah, there's the trick. Ah, now I truly understand. That's fascinating. It's almost like a cosmic jigsaw puzzle, isn't it?
It really is. Our planet is so big, and it really is like playing Where's Waldo, except you're not always looking for the red and white striped hat in this busy field.
I understand.
Sometimes, yeah, it's hard, but these images are so beautiful. Our planet is so beautiful, and some of these images are actually the astronauts not looking down, but looking out. And so we found photos of comets, photos of the large and small Magellanic Clouds. There's so many different things that they've been able to see over the years. And now we can see too.
That sounds absolutely beautiful. Again, I will look as soon as we wrap this up. It sounds fascinating. So all the Skeptic Zone listeners can pitch in, and if people would only spend, some little amount of time every week perusing these beautiful photographs, they can all add to our scientific understanding.
That is entirely true. And our own planet, in a lot of ways, is the most important world we can try and understand. And these photos get at everything from when do the flowers bloom to how do the tides affect where the reefs appear close to the surface. Wow,
this is absolutely fascinating, Pamela. You're whetting my appetite. Folks, This is the clue for you. Head for cosmoquest.org. I shall link to that in the show notes. Now, Pamela, of course, people will know you very well from Astronomy Cast, the long-running podcast, and I have been very proudly advertising Astronomy Cast from, I think, the very first week or two of the Skeptic Zone podcast, so for coming up for 10 years. But sad, it's very sad, I can't run the promo anymore because you've sort of changed your job title, I think.
I have, and I'm going to record you a new promo tomorrow. I promise. So in January, I switched jobs. I am now the Director of Technology and Citizen Science for the Astronomical Society of the Pacific.
Wow.
And it's important to remember here that this is an international organization. So even though I live in the middle of the United States, we're still a Pacific nation here in the United States, just like you there in Australia are a Pacific.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we are here internationally working to engage people in learning and doing science. And this is a society that's been around for over 100 years and found its origins in the solar eclipse, where because it was the amateur astronomers who were first learning how to use photographic equipment and take astrophotographs of the eclipsing sun, they were the ones that captured those photos that were needed to understand a solar eclipse shortly after the technology came into existence. So the entire organization started out of pro-am collaboration, which fits for me because it's kind of what I do for a living.
That's, again, absolutely. You do such interesting stuff. And quickly, what's the website?
It's astrosociety.org. And it's a society, which means that anyone out there can join and be part of our educational mission and our scientific mission to advance our understanding of the universe.
That's what I like to hear. I like to advance our understanding of the universe in any way we can. And folks, I'll link to all those fascinating websites in this week's show notes. And undoubtedly, Pamela, all our listeners won't be able to hear next week's show because they'll be so busy cataloguing photographs.
Well, you can listen to this show while you catalog photographs. This is the awesome thing.
Yes.
Use your brain to listen, use your brain to find things, but dedicate eyes and ears separately.
Pamela Gay, Dr. Pamela Gay, such a pleasure to talk with you again. We must do this more regularly. You're such a fascinating person to talk to. I am envious of the wonderful things you get to see and you get to explore.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure, and we do need to do this more often. Thank you so much, as always, for having me on. It's really a pleasure. Hi, this is Dr. Pamela Gay from Astronomy Cast. Each week, Fraser Kane and I take our listeners on a fact-based journey through the cosmos. With our weekly podcast, we explain not just what we know, but how we know what we know about this universe that we share. Check us out at astronomycast.com and look for us in iTunes, Google Play, and wherever you download podcasts. See you online.
On Thursday, the 5th of October, I attended the annual Choice Magazine's SHONKY Awards. Choice Magazine is Australia's consumer magazine giving product reviews. The good thing about Choice Magazine is that they are fully independent, and from time to time I've been along to the offices of Choice Magazine to, give them some tips on products that we consider to be shonky. Shonky is a great word. It means dodgy, unreliable, not trustworthy, doesn't work, that sort of thing. This year, the Choice Magazine gave a shonky to an online booking system via GoGo, Westpac Bank, for offering a savings program aimed at children who haven't even been born yet, Samsung for their washer dryer, which uses an excessive amount of water and takes up to 6 hours to dry your clothes. A vitamin chewable gummy for children, which was full of sugar. Cat food, Cole's Complete Cuisine for Cats, which was shown to be poorly labelled and could actually harm your cat. Cuddly Sensitive Fabric Softener, which performed no better than water. Shonky airbags from Holden, Toyota, Lexus, BMW and Mazda. And that story is a scandal in itself. But my favourite was the pain eraser. And this was awarded a Shonky for dubious pain relief claims. Ads for the pain eraser pen claimed it offers drug-free pain relief through, quote, the science of electroanalgesia, end quote. If you call the 1-800 number, advertise a, quote, trained consultant, end quote, we'll call you back to discuss the details of the product, but not before they check to see if you'll be paying with Visa or MasterCard. They promise that the pain eraser works on everyone, except for those with pacemakers or who are pregnant. For anything from 2 hours to 2 days after you discharge an electrical current into your skin up to 40 times. Now, this device is sort of like an overgrown pen. Big fat... Think of the Doctor Who's sonic screwdriver. You put it on your skin and it gives you short little zaps of tiny amounts of electricity, I suppose. The Pain Eraser website claims the pen works by exerting pressure on the quartz crystal, which produces a tiny electric charge. Apparently, this stimulates the body's endorphins to act as a natural painkiller. The item goes on, our partners at Consumer NZ, Consumer New Zealand, tested the pain eraser and found it delivers less energy than a TENS treatment session. Dr Brad Mackay, and he's with the Australian Skeptics, a Sydney-based GP, says the pain eraser is probably good for lighting your stovetop, but unlikely to be beneficial for pain. Quote, any subjective decrease in pain is more likely to occur from sheer boredom after clicking the device 30 to 40 times rather than the device itself, end quote, he says. I caught up with Kate Brown from Choice magazine just after the awards, and also to some other staff from Choice who were on hand to dress up in all sorts of weird costumes. I'm with Kate Brown. Kate, great job partly hosting the Shonkies today. Quick word to the Skeptic Zone podcast listeners. The interesting one from my point of view, they were all great, but being a skeptical point of view, the pain eraser.
Look, that's my favourite, to be honest, and I found it.
You found it?
I did, yeah. Kind of heads up from our friends in New Zealand, who clearly watch a lot more daytime TV than we do, because it's heavily advertised in the day, funnily enough, when old people are at home who tend to suffer from chronic pain. When we looked at it and did some testing, it really is nothing more than a piezo lighter, which you might be familiar with if you've ever lit your stovetop or your barbecue. It just creates a little spark, and you can buy them for about $8. But the pain eraser is $160. No proof that it works. When I spoke to them on the phone, when we purchased one, they told me it releases endorphins. I can't say it did that for me. It was a bit like being stabbed with a pin. So possibly you could bang your head on the wall to, take your mind off your chronic knee pain or your back pain. But for me, it was just a blatant rip-off. It's a piece of plastic that, you could use to light your barbecue probably, and that's about it.
I think you could almost start to put together a book one day of all the shonks given to medical devices.
Oh, yeah, look, there's so many. It almost felt unfair to give it to the pain eraser because we do see so many. And, it really is very predatory. Chronic pain isn't a laughing matter. People are desperate. They're going to try anything, and it's just really, really unfair.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. A couple of people are here with Shonky T-shirts on, but they look very odd. This is for the podcast audience. We have a giant strawberry. Hello.
Hello.
And a heavily pregnant woman.
I think it might be 8 children. I'm not sure.
But oddly enough, on stage a few minutes ago, you weren't pregnant. What happened?
I know. It's one of life's miracles.
Now, you were here to help demonstrate a Shonky bank product aimed at expectant registered parents.
That's right. So you only get $200 if you keep the account for 16 years. It's pretty dodgy.
That's pretty shonky. And you're addressed as a strawberry for vitamins, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Vita gummies are essentially lollies that are packed with sugar and claim to be good for teeth. So a pretty dodgy product, especially for kids.
Well, congratulations on another fine Shonky Award, and you both look, yes.
Costume.
Interesting.
Yes, thanks. I'll take that.
Thank you to Choice Magazine for inviting me along to cover the Shonkies this year. I wonder who will win next year. For more information, visit www.choice.com.au. Quackwatch, your guide to quackery, health fraud, and intelligent decisions, operated by Stephen Barrett, MD. Quackwatch is now an international network of people who are concerned about health-related frauds, myths, fads, fallacies, and misconduct. Its primary focus is on quackery-related information that is difficult or impossible to get elsewhere. Articles on quackery include quackery. How should it be defined? How it sells. 26 ways to spot it. How it harms cancer patients. 7 warning signs for bogus science. Why health professionals become quacks. And many more, including in-depth looks at acupuncture, chiropractic, homeopathy, naturopathy, and much more. Visit www.quackwatch.com.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Welcome to the Australian Museum, where we're in the theatre where only shortly, a few months ago, or a month or two ago, we were doing the Skeptical Investigators, but right now we're here with Tim Ferguson and friends. Tim Ferguson, how are you in this now empty theatre?
Dinosaurs, dinosaurs, dinosaurs. Maynard, we've got dinosaurs.
That's right, it's paleontology or get out of the house.
Absolutely. And everybody likes dinosaurs, including our target audience, which is everybody, with Billie and the Dinosaurs, which is like, it's an orchestral storytelling piece, a lot like Peter and the Wolf, except with a female protagonist of young Billie, little troublemaking Billie, who finds a whole bunch of dinosaurs, Australian dinosaurs.
That's right. Now, my favourite version of Peter and the Wolf is the one with Wendy Carlos and Weird Al Yankovic, which is great. Do you actually do any playing yourself in this? Do you actually get out any instrumental spectacular yourself?
I play the spoons.
Oh, good.
And I look charming.
And now you've written this and you've originally designed it for a full orchestra. What are you doing with instrumentation today?
Well, we just have the electronic recording, so all the instruments sound like the instruments because they're taken from instruments. So we can have the story being told by me, and every once in a while we stop and we listen to whatever motif, whatever piece of music is appropriate to whichever dinosaur we've just introduced.
Now, how scientifically accurate is what you're about to narrate, or is it just like the movie Inception?
It's totally scientifically accurate. We've had it checked and then double-checked by the Australian Museum paleontologists.
Okay.
They've gone through it with a fine-toothed dinosaur, and so minimal...
How wrong were you originally? I mean, like when you had a dashhound in it, they went, no.
Yeah, we have, but it's a bald dashhound. It's got lizard skin, but they said, no, technically, they said that wasn't around. We made a few errors just in terms of timelines, but, there are so many millions of years. Who's counting?
And how have the kids reacted to it? Because you've run it as a test audience a few times. You've done 1 or 2 shows here. How's the audience reacting to it?
Well, you'll hear today that they do everything from laughing to screaming, when they're asked to scream like Billie does when she meets the Australovenator, which is basically Australia's equivalent of a T-Rex. And so I say, everybody scream, and it's one thing kids are happy to do at the drop of a hat is
How do you stop them screaming?
Well, that takes a little bit of convincing, shushing, and we do turn on the fire hoses from above.
Can you see this being performed on a big stage with a full orchestra at some stage?
Oh, it's going to happen in Canberra. We've got the Canberra Youth Orchestra and friends who'll be performing, with the whole full orchestra, also with an All Abilities Orchestra playing along with them, so people with all sorts of physical or intellectual disabilities jumping on stage, playing all the instruments. It's very important to the other creators and myself that we get people with disabilities involved in this whole thing, mainly because, it's a giant market of people with disabilities who'll pay to come and see this thing. I do not understand why producers haven't worked this out yet.
Yeah, of course, with the Doug Anthony All-Stars, that's one set of skills. You've written books, you do comedy workshops. What do you have to bring to writing for a group of children in a live environment that you haven't had to do before?
Well, it's much the same, in fact. It's all the same kind of tricks. You've got to keep people's attention in a comedy show. You can't say, okay, here's 90 seconds where there's not going to be anything funny but some really good messages. A live comedy audience's attention span, in fact, is even shorter than that of children because a live comedy audience is probably drunk.
And what feedback have you got from the kids that you've been able to use when, oh yeah, I should do that?
One kid said, more dinosaurs. It's like, well, you go get more dinosaurs. That's what I said. You go create more Australian dinosaurs. There's a limited number. It became quite a heated argument.
Oh, okay. Right, well, we'll just sit back and we'll see how the kids enjoy it. Do you fear the children or fear their parents more?
No, we don't fear anybody. Today, by the way, I should say in the show today, we have Geoff Willis, who is the composer of the music for Billie and the Dinosaurs, and his brother David Willis, who is the creator of our education package for schools or, any group that wants to put the piece on. They're identical twins, so I'm never quite sure which one I'm talking to, but it doesn't matter because they think with the same hive brain. It's like being in Star Trek.
Yeah, I just think of them as those guys from Terminator.
Yeah. What were those people called? The Blurg, They were unstoppable. Who were they? They were
the Borg.
Yeah, the Borg. I prefer the Blurg. I think the Blurg sort of describes their fashion choices better. But yeah, it's like hanging around the Borg.
And of course, Tim's just the attractive, pretty face of the whole Billie and the Dinosaurs thing. We have the two guys that make the whole thing go. Who have we got here?
I'm David Willis. And I'm Geoff Willis.
And Geoff, you're the musical or the audio visuals? Which bit are you?
No, I'm the composer of Billie and the Dinosaurs. Yeah, we got together with Tim Ferguson 5.5 years ago, and we decided to write about something that's exciting for kids. And we thought of a number of different topics, but eventually came up with dinosaurs.
Yeah, and how have you felt about how it's gone so far?
This has been an amazing week. Everybody's reacted well. We've got kids who are 2 years old right up to 12 or 13, and of course the adults right up to whatever age. They've absolutely enjoyed it. They've loved it.
And how have you found? Have you needed earplugs for the kids screaming yet?
No, I'm a teacher. We're both teachers.
Oh,
we're used to it. Yes, right. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, though, the first show we did this week, it wasn't the kids that we were worried about. There was one parent in the front row. There's a lovely happy ending, and one of the parents' head went back, and she started bawling her eyes out.
Wow!
So there's something about that end that's wonderful. The moral of the story, I think, or the show was terrible.
Yeah.
that could be.
Why did I come to this?
That's very possible.
We'll have a good show today. Now, how many people are going to have in here? How many kids and parents?
It's about 120, I think. I think it seats about 120. And that will mean if we'll have a sellout show today and the last 2 days.
Wow.
Total sellout.
Cool. Okay, well, I look forward to hearing what it's like.
Thanks, Maynard. Thanks, Maynard.
Great to see you. Yes, Today we've got dinosaurs. Do you want to hear about the dinosaurs? Yeah! You want to hear about the girl called Billie who meets the dinosaurs? Yeah! Okay, well, we're going to tell the story, which is called Billie and the Dinosaurs. And I'll tell the story, and then we can hear the music, and you'll see pictures, and the rest is in your imagination. All the way to the meadow, screaming as she ran. So let's run and scream at the same time.
Tara, who did you bring along to the show?
I brought my daughter Amelia.
Hi Amelia, how are you?
Good.
Did you have a favourite bit of the show? What bit was that? Did you enjoy screaming?
Screaming and running, didn't we? Yeah, we've got to talk.
That's okay. Yeah. Did you think she enjoyed the show?
She absolutely loved it. It was great. Very interactive, which is good for that age. Yeah.
And did you do a bit of screaming and running as well?
Did lots of screaming and running, yeah.
This gives parents an excuse to act up too, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It was lots of fun, really good. No, we had a ball. We love dinosaurs in our house, so...
Who doesn't?
Exactly, yeah. It's good for grown-ups as well.
Thank you. And a quick wrap up there, Tim. So how was this show? You've done 4 in a row here at the Australian Museum. You've given them science, you've given them screaming, you've given them running, you've given them nightmares.
Oh, it's been great fun. I think the kids all had a good time. We had a dinosaur turned up, and that was very exciting. And it's great to get some music out there for the young audience.
So you must be looking forward to doing the full show in Canberra then?
Oh, yeah. Canberra's going to be huge. We'll have a full symphony orchestra and all abilities orchestra, and we'll have bits of dinosaurs. And hopefully, real dinosaurs. Well, actually, unemployed NIDA graduates dressed as dinosaurs.
G'day, this is Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki, proud to be a skeptic, and you can find out more about me at drkarl.com and get lots of free stuff there as well.
Grain of salt, grain of salt, grain of salt.
Let's all take this with a grain of salt. Here's Eran Segev.
Grain of salt now, grain of salt, you gotta take it with a...
Massimo Polidoro, very nice to meet you here in Wrocław.
Yes.
The conference has just ended. What's your impression?
It was very interesting, and there were many interesting speakers, and as always, it's always a pleasure to be around people that have the same interests and same passions, and can share ideas and strategies on how to address the irrational and superstition and pseudoscience. So it's always a pleasure.
You are the president or the chairman of CICAP?
Yeah, the executive director, let's say.
The executive director of CICAP. And CICAP has been, so it's obviously Italian skeptics.
Yes.
And you've been around for quite a while.
Quite a while. It's almost 30 years. In a couple of years, it's our 30th anniversary, yes.
And can you tell us a bit about the activities of CICAP?
CICAP was born in 1989 from an idea by an Italian science journalist, Piero Angela. He's very famous in Italy. He cannot walk in the street without people stopping him and really forming a crowd. So since he's so popular, he was able to gather all big names in science in Italy and culture, including Umberto Eco and Nobel Prize winners who were supporters of this idea of forming a committee to investigate, at the time, paranormal claims. Of course, during these 30 years, the name has changed. The last P of CHICAP is not longer paranormal, but it's pseudoscience. Because the paranormal, even though it's still around, it's always...
less of an interest.
Absolutely. This group of people has grown, and above all, what has grown is the interest in our work from the media and from the public. We've always been able, in a way or another, to be in the news, so to keep the interest. And so we have many activities going on almost every moment, because we have local groups all over Italy that prepare lectures and meetings, and we always have some activities going. We test claims in laboratory or wherever it is needed. So we try to be as diverse as possible, with experts in many fields that can be contacted and involved in some investigation or whatever. But our main goal, and now we have started a collaboration with the Ministry of Culture and Education in Italy, where we are going to be able to help teachers and school have a set of instruments in order to teach the kids how to approach the news, for example, and how to have a few elementary information on how to distinguish between what could be fake and what could be real, so how to address the sources and so on. So we're working a lot.
So it seems like
I'm not working.
How did you become involved with CHICAP?
Because in the beginning, because when I was very young, I read a book by Piero Angela. It was about it was a critical investigation on parapsychology, and the main figure from that book was James Randi. So I was fascinated by this whole personality and this whole approach. The scientific method looked to me something so fascinating, and a way of approaching life so clear and reasonable that I was, as I said, so passionate about the thing that I wrote a letter. At the time there was no internet. I wrote a letter to both of them, to Piero Angela and James Randi, just thanking them and hoping that someday I could meet them and thank them in person, and hoping maybe that a committee like there was in America, PsyCop at the time, could be formed in Italy as well. And to my surprise, they both replied. Piero Angela wanted to meet me because he was interested in a young person so fascinated by the subject, and he also had this idea of forming a committee like PsyCop. And eventually Randy came to Italy because he was friend with Piero, and they invited me, and so after spending a few days together, they asked me if I was interested in going in the US and study with Randy and be his apprentice in order to learn the craft, let's say, and then bring back the experience in order to start CHICAP. And that's what I did.
So that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So you've been the director all that time?
No. There was another director. I was, for example, following investigations for one time. Then I was the director of the magazine, and now I'm the director of the committee.
Okay. What are the main current activities that you're involved in, or maybe a few of the current activities that you're involved in?
Well, in CHICAP, as I said, one of the main things is this collaboration we have with the Ministry of Education and University. And
I just want to actually focus on that for a moment, because this is something that we've been thinking about for a while. Critical thinking is obviously something that's taught indirectly in history, in geography, as in English. But we've been thinking about how we could promote critical thinking in schools in a way that is more direct, where people the children are actually aware that what they're doing is critical thinking, not just indirectly but directly. Taught the terms, taught about logical fallacies, just taught to assess things while knowing that that's what they're doing. So I'm really interested in maybe getting a more detailed perspective.
Well, we have tried for a long time to do this. We've always been lecturing in schools occasionally with no plan for the whole country. Just wherever they called us, we went. But that doesn't make a real change unless, well, of course, on single people, maybe on single kids. But the idea of having the program that the school have to follow every year include this subject was something that was very important to us, because we think it is important to investigate the claims, to debunk the frauds and whatever is needed. But you know that you're not going to change people's minds if they want to believe. But what is very useful is to give young people the instruments to find out by themselves if they can trust something or not. So we've always worked toward this goal, and finally we have been able to find people interested in the ministry, in our approach, and so it's going to be starting next year in practice. So we are just working out the details.
How did you, I mean, in some sense, something like this, the curriculum is the easy part. Sometimes with a lot of topics, the curriculum is the content is the difficult part.
Yeah.
Here, the content is not the issue. It's convincing schools, politicians, whoever, administrators, bureaucrats, that what you are offering is something of value, is the main issue. How did you go about doing that?
As I said, it was not easy because it was many years.
So what was it? I guess I don't want perhaps every little detail, but I'm just wondering whether the focus was probably multi-pronged, I'm presuming, but sometimes you find a sympathetic politician and that opens the door for you, or sometimes it's a groundswell that
I think that what changed is the perception that politicians, administrators have of the work that we do, for example, because fake news have become a huge problem in Italy as well as all over the world.
Yeah.
And suddenly we find out that dealing with people making false statements is a real problem, because it can damage the lives of so many people. Look at vaccines, for example, and they had to promote a law making it mandatory to have kids vaccinated.
Yes.
Otherwise, it was growing movement anti-vaccine. So, since this became quite a big problem, they probably started to look around who was the experts, who were the experts in this field, and they found that there was Umberto Eco, there were all these Nobel Prize winners, there were Pangea, there was a lot of people concerned about this, and has been concerned for so many years, and they contacted us and we started working together.
That is an amazing achievement to have them come to you rather than the other way around.
We tried to get them, but
no. But I think it's the kind of thing that happens from many years of work on putting yourself in the right position. One final question, because Randy is about to join us.
Yeah.
What is the next step for you?
Well, this is going to be very engaging for all of us. But also we are approaching our work in a more open way, which is putting the accent more on the scientific method and on science, because we find that you can reach more people like this way. For example, this year, next week, from when we are speaking, there's going to be in Italy our first Chick-Up Fest, which is open to the city where we are holding it, and so far it's the largest attendance that we have ever had, which is 800 people subscribing in order to participate, but we're also going to involve many other persons that are not participating to the Congress, let's say, but may participate to an open conference, or we're going into the schools. We're having workshops and laboratories for kids, and an exhibition on optical illusion. So many things in order to have people talk about these subjects in many different ways. And I think that we're going more and more toward that direction.
Very good. Thank you very much, Massimo.
Thank you.
So while we were sitting here talking, James Randi joined us. Hello, Randy.
Hello there.
I've noticed that you've, in the past couple of months, you've become active within the skeptical movement. Congratulations. This is obviously your... How many trips have you had to Europe? Do you even know the number?
Countless.
Countless.
I'm going around the world all the time.
I mean, I know you've been to Australia about 5 or 6 times at least.
At least, yes.
At least. So, I mean, you've been to 3 of our conferences, so that's 3 trips, just that alone.
And a close friend of mine is Dick Smith.
Of course.
And Philip Adams, of course.
Yeah.
These are people I respect very highly.
Yeah, and of course these are people who are still active with not necessarily directly with Australian skeptics, but they're active with spreading the message. I understand this plan for this to be your last trip to Europe. Is that something somebody said?
Well, it's the latest trip.
The latest.
Let's put it there.
It's always true, isn't it?
That sure is true. And I'm only 89. I think I have expectation of a few more years. My family history shows me that my grandparents lived into their very late 80s and into their 90s in a couple of cases. So I'm encouraged by that. I don't intend to die too soon. I've got too much work to do.
I'm glad. Yeah. Well, you're working on a book right now.
Yes, another book, my 11th book.
Yeah, and I understand that at the moment what you're doing is you're whittling it down, right? It's too big. And
yes, it's got to be cut down somewhat, but I'll do it very gently.
Yeah. We've already heard that you don't know when it's coming out.
No idea.
But is there like a time scale? Is it within the coming year? Or?
Oh, yes, I would say within another year, yeah.
Okay. You've retired from active duty within the JREF a few years ago.
Well, almost. No, I can't really retire altogether. I just sort of step to the side momentarily to get some sleep every now and then I'm right back in again.
So what are the plans, apart from the book that you're working on, what are your other plans for, let's say, for the next few months?
Well, I have a lot of obligations personal obligations that I have to friends, some of whom are in the skeptical movement, and I've got to fulfill those. But it's far too complicated a thing to cut down into a short discussion, I can assure you.
Are you going to be in Las Vegas for SciCon?
Oh yes, in Las Vegas for SciCon, but it's coming up soon.
Yeah.
And I guess I better get ready for. I forgot all about that. Oh yeah, sure. No, I can't forget about these things. I have them on my calendar, and I sort of dread the fact that they're coming closer and closer every day, and I'm getting closer to the end of my days as well, so I hope the two of them don't coincide.
Yeah, let's hope for that. This conference, I noticed that you've attended almost the entire 3 days, and I was just wondering what your impression is of this European.
Oh, I'm very impressed. And not having been to Poland before, and in fact, not very much in this part of the world, really. I see that I've missed a great deal because I see a very interesting contrast in some of the buildings here, buildings that were formerly used for much less attractive, I would say, political views. And I'm pleased to see the way Poland has come along. I'm very, very pleased and impressed.
There is one more thing I would ask you to do, if you don't mind, before we finish, and that is this is James Randi, and you're listening to the Skeptic Zone.
Hi, this is James Randi, and you're listening to the Skeptic Zone.
And maybe if you would just want to give a personal message to Richard, because he will be editing this, so he will, even if he chooses to edit it out, he will hear your personal message.
Well, Richard, try to make my voice mellifluous, to say the least.
James Randi, thank you very much. It's a pleasure meeting you again.
Grain of salt now. Grain of salt, you gotta take it with a...
Okay. Hi everyone, this is Susan from the GSOW project, and I'm in Frankfurt, Germany right at the moment with the About Time tour, and we've stopped in at a pub called Albatross. Albatross. And we've met up with one of the speakers from the conference, and I'll let you talk to him right now. And his lecture was quite humorous. I think it was the last one at the conference. Almost the last one at the conference.
Yeah, that was the interview with Randy after that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Randy was afterwards. And we talked, and Holm did a lecture on quantum, and it was quite funny. And we really kind of needed something funny for the end. So it was terrific. I laughed quite a bit at some of the examples he put up. So...
All right. Well, my name is Holm Hümmler. I'm from the Frankfurt area in Germany, and I'm originally a physicist and have been working as a management consultant for a little over 15 years now, and basically came back to doing some physics through the skeptical scene, and recently wrote a book called Relative Quantenquark, Relative Quantum Nonsense, and I have a blog about that too, which is all in German, so unfortunately it's... there's not much there in English so far, but yeah, that's what I basically been up to recently, and deal with all kinds of nonsense that is justified with quantum physics or with the theory of relativity and other pseudophysics concepts that might link into that.
So this conference is over. We're all a little tired. You've had a day or two, right, to kind of relax. What were the highlights of the conference for you?
The highlights of the conference for me were, well, on the one hand, the exorcism documentary, which was really creepy and really touching, and then everything that has to do with the psychology of pseudoscience and psychology and skepticism, which I think is always the most interesting topic to me, because it's just not just about debunking things; it's more about why people believe things. That's I think that's much more interesting for us skeptics when we're getting away from the purely consumer protection part of what we're doing.
Any takeaways? Did you learn something new that besides exorcism, was there something that you came home and you said, oh my gosh, I had no idea, that was fascinating. I really didn't know about that before.
Well, besides exorcism, I would say the fact that exorcisms are such a big issue in Poland is really the main surprise for me, and that because you don't really hear much of that in Germany, and so that was shocking, and that was surprising, and that was really the one that stands out to me at this point.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now we've had another contribution via the Voice Bite app, and this one's from Canada.
Hey Richard, it's Tamara from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. What sort of paranormal field were you interested in when you were younger?
Thanks, Tamara. That's a really good question. I think in the very early days it was Bigfoot. When I was a little kid, that was all the rage. That was all everywhere. That was on TV, and lots of mystery and books and Bigfoot, yeah. But then, not long after, it really changed to UFOs, partly, I think, because of the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was a huge smash, and Star Wars. And those listeners who were around in the late 70s will remember that Australia especially, and I guess the United States, went crazy for UFOs. They were just and we expected they would land any day. In fact, I've got a video up in my cupboard. I'm looking at it now, a DVD which says something like, if I can see, UFOs, it has begun, or they're already here, and that was the late 70s. So, yeah, Bigfoot to begin with, and then UFOs, and then I think the rest, psychics and water divining and all that sort of stuff. Thanks very much for your contribution, Tamara, and I look forward to seeing you, I hope, in Las Vegas at SciCon coming up in a couple of weeks. And if you want to send in a question or a comment to the Skeptic Zone, Just download the Voice Byte app and use the hashtag Skeptic Zone. You can find links on skepticzone.tv. Coming up on next week's show, apart from anything else, Eran Segev chats to the African skeptic, or the skeptic from Africa, Leo Igwe. But until then, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. You can be part of the show by downloading the Voice Byte app at voicebyte.com and using the hashtag Skeptic Zone. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.